Welcome to the Meditations and Musings podcast. I'm Elena Lipson. I'm a mama, I'm a wife, and I'm the founder of the Divine Self-Care Circle membership and the Virtual Retreat Academy. I don't believe that you have to sacrifice your body, your health, or your family in order to create true abundance and prosperity. I believe in living based on the divine feminine metrics of success, and these include pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. Each week, I'll bring you 1 to 2 new episodes. One of these will be a guided meditation that you don't have to do on the meditation pillow, and the other will be a conversation to help you access your inner wisdom, to ignite abundance, and inspire others to do the same. I invite you to join me on this journey back to the magic of a divinely aligned and well cared for you. And now, join me for today's episode. Good morning. This is Elena Lipson, your self-care coach and mentor. And today we are talking about the one skill that makes me an awesome mom, wife, and entrepreneur. Welcome to the Divine Self-Care Meditations and Musings podcast. Thank you so much for being here and for coming back and for sharing and for reviewing and all the amazing things that you did to get you to this very moment. Whether you are taking a walk, washing the dishes, whether you are just doing nothing, which if you know me, you know I love doing nothing, though it doesn't come very easily, but it is so important. It's one of those things that is super undervalued in our society because we always want to be busy, we want to be doing things, creating things. We feel like if we're not doing something, we are being lazy. Well, I say there is nothing wrong with being lazy. In fact, being bored, being lazy, doing nothing is quite the portal to creativity, to new ideas, to new ways of being. It's actually one of the things that is an extremely feminine way of doing life, doing business. Instead of constantly doing something and never giving yourself a rest, you are creating space. You are accessing wisdom. You are making it a point to create stillness for intuition. This is very different from being in avoidance mode and deciding to watch Netflix instead of working on your business vision. Believe me, been there, done that, don't like it. So when your intention is to rest and to be creative and to really understand that you are in a position of cultivating and creating instead of being lazy in the negative connotation, that's when you start to live the self-care way. So for those of you who are new to the podcast, I say welcome, welcome. We've had a lot of new subscribers in the last few months and weeks. And those of you who don't know me, I've shared my story quite a bit. And this relates to the one skill that makes me an awesome mom, wife, and entrepreneur. And I'm going to share that with you today. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. I am, as I said in that title, a mom. My son is 13 years old at the time of this recording. He just turned 13 very recently. He has recently started homeschooling. So the last year, we're in 7th grade right now. So 6th grade was full homeschooling year. We are now in just a few months into our 7th grade year of homeschooling. And I did not go into it easily, even though it was something that we always talked about. When it came to actually doing it, I freaked out a little bit, but I used my tools. I used my self-care tools. I used my mindfulness tools. I communicated to myself, to my husband, to my son. We actually got in a really good place about it until I landed in excitement, even though the fear and doubt was still there. Are we doing the right thing? I really understood that now I was being called to embody what I teach, which is freedom, doing it your way, allowing the path to be not the typical path. It's all the things I teach my clients to do, but now we were doing it with our own family, with our own son. I was definitely worried about how it would impact my business, to be quite honest. I do travel and I have work hours and things that I do. But instead of allowing it to scare me, I asked the question, which was inspired by a dear friend who also is an entrepreneur and a homeschooling mom. And she asked me, how could your business grow when you homeschool? And I thought, oh, interesting question, which is a great coaching question, which is one that I allowed myself to really spend time with. And I realized that I was being invited to really lean into the way I coach my clients into streamlining and processes and simplicity, and not creating more just for the sake of creating more, and not creating a bigger business just for the sake of creating a bigger business, but to really think about how you want your life to look and be and feel. And then with that, allowing all of those old stories to fall away about what it means to be wealthy and a mom and homeschooling and an entrepreneur. What does it mean? Does it mean, like, if you think you want to make $2 million or $5 million, are you feeling like you have to, or even $100,000, right? What does it mean to you? Do you feel like you're going to have to be away from your family a lot and hire a lot of people and have a lot of expenses? Well, that's where I start to come in as your coach and mentor and say, how can this be easier? How can this be more simple? How can this be more fun? How can this be more profitable, right? What am I doing now that's overcomplicating things? And so that's really been my streamlined thinking into how we've really approached homeschooling. And it's been so much fun. I'm also a wife to my hubby. We've been together for 19 years now, married for 16. We just celebrated our anniversary. And I'll tell you, this one skill that I'm going to share, it really is a pivotal element in why I am a happy, connected wife, and why I love spending time with my husband, and why we are able to move through really difficult moments with grace and ease, and some arguing and debate, which is totally normal. But we do it. We do it with grace. We really do, because I take so much personal responsibility in the way I show up. And this one skill that I'm going to share is really at the heart of how my life and my relationship could have gone down a very different path, because I was carrying quite a bit of resentment for areas of my life that I was not taking personal responsibility for, where I wasn't asking for what I need and for what I want, and allowing resentment to creep between us. And resentment is the biggest intimacy killer there is. So I want to make sure that you are not going down that path. And if you are, it's totally normal. I mean, I've been there. I really have been there, like carrying so much resentment that I just wasn't even looking forward to intimate moments with my husband. I was just sort of, going within and hiding my feelings. And even though I'm someone who's just super, super communicative and really wants to talk things through, I was starting to really hide in that space of resentment. And resentment can kill your sex life, and hence your intimacy, and hence your love, quicker than a lot of things. And I think a lot of marriages go down that road because resentment is something that once you build up enough of it, it's really difficult to even see where it came from. So next year, my husband and I are creating a course called Self-Care for Couples. And this is going to be one of the pivotal practices for sure. This thing I'll be sharing today. So again, I have my business, which I've been running for, my online business version has been around for about 5 years now. And my biggest, I'm the cheerleader of self-care. I will talk about self-care all day long. Throw me on a stage and I will talk about it for as long as you need me to talk about it. I create custom guided meditations on this podcast and in my circle. I host a membership circle, which is all about self-care, called the Divine Self-Care Circle. We are about to go into our 5th year, which is phenomenal. And the really cool thing about it is I have women who've been there from the very beginning, women who leave and come back, new women joining all the time. And I'm just so blessed and so grateful to be able to talk about my passion, which is play and self-care and intimacy and femininity, and how to really be your number one asset in life, business, and the bedroom. So that is what the circle is about. If you are on my list, go head over to elenalipson.com. If you want to get on the wait list, you'll be able to get on there from my website and be notified when the circle opens again in the next couple of months. So let's see, what else? I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in New York City. I'm actually from Russia. I went to New York when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I talk about a lot of this in my earlier episodes. I'm not going to dive into the entire story right now. There is a book coming for that. But I grew up in New York City, which defined a lot of who I am, my attitude, my street smarts, like just the way I see the world in New York City and what's possible really framed who I am. And then in my 20s, I lived in California, which which is where I met my husband, and we had our son. And then when he was born, we ended up moving to the Pacific Northwest because we wanted a nature-based life, a little bit slower than Orange County, California. And this is where we've been for the last 12 years. And it's really taken me time to appreciate the beauty of the Pacific Northwest. And this morning was just a perfect example of me driving in the morning and just really loving the beauty, the fog and the fall colors and the sunshine. It was just so beautiful. I really am now, I think, re-falling in love with Pacific Northwest the way you do after you have like a bad relationship. And then all of a sudden you're like, you remember why you love the person in the first place. That's my relationship with the Pacific Northwest. So that's where I live. And I started this podcast over a year ago now. And this is really where I share my passion for all things self-care and to really be someone in your life who activates you to your own brilliance, to what's possible when you really put yourself on your calendar. And everything I create and do and share and write about is all in this direction of self-care as the best business tool, marriage tool, parenting tool. Self-care is the core of how you show up in the world. And it's not just bubble baths and manicures, which are amazing. It's really about finding your voice and being in alignment and being embodied and loving yourself to the depth of who you really are, which is incredible, and learning to celebrate yourself. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So the one skill that makes me an awesome mom, wife, and entrepreneur is the magic morning practice. So what's the magic morning practice? I've mentioned this before. This is one of my key frameworks that I teach in my circle. It is the thing I get asked to talk about most often on interviews, on stage, wherever I go. It's the thing that I teach when I get asked to co-host retreats. I come in there and I create such a beautiful container in the morning that really helps to align the ladies for the rest of the retreat. So it's really a powerful, powerful practice. So the magic morning practice, first of all, the magic part is an acronym. So because I have come from a technology background, I love acronyms. I love creating acronyms. It's super fun. And this one just came to me. It was really quick. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. The funny thing is I named it Magic Morning Practice first, and then the acronym came to me, which of course means it was super aligned. So magic means movement. A means alignment. The G is for gratitude. The I is for intention. And the C is for connection. And the connection is to yourself, to those around you, and to divine guidance or spirit. Magic morning practice is something I started when my baby was he's not a baby anymore, but when he was a baby, he was about 2 years old. And I was just going through my own personal sort of physical, emotional, spiritual transformation where I think a lot of women in your 30s and 40s, in fact, if you haven't gone through one yet, just hold on because it's coming. It's where you start to ask yourself, who am I now? Who am I now that I'm a wife or a mother or an adult woman who still is, maybe hasn't quite transformed into that in some ways, which is totally normal. So who am I now is the question that I started asking because I made all these choices, but a lot of them I was making that, they weren't super awake and aligned choices. They were choices because I thought I had to. So which is where some of that resentment that I was talking about earlier comes from, where you're making choices, but they're not really coming from your own needs and desires. They're coming from pleasing other people or doing the right thing for somebody else or thinking that you should or out of obligation. Those are very different personal choices and ones that we find it very difficult to take personal responsibility for. So in that time of my life, I was making choices that I felt were right, like moving to Washington, which I really did not. Like my heart didn't want to do it, but my mind knew it was the right thing. And I think part of my intuitive soul was doing the right thing because it's made so much of our life so beautiful. But I really had to come to that point over time. So here I was living in a place with no friends, no family, my husband and this new baby who was now 2. And I was over those 2 years after he was born, my body really went through some very difficult phases where I was feeling very ill and nobody knew what was going on. We had all kinds of tests done where I found out that I had precancerous polyps in my colon. I had all kinds of gut issues. I actually was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr, which is a very common autoimmune issue. And I was very exhausted at all times. Like if any point in the day you said, take a nap, I would just have slept. Like, it was crazy. Our intimate life was definitely there, but I can't say I felt fully connected. I can't say I felt playful or present in my sex life. In fact, I just sort of became this thing that we did. And, it's very difficult for me to say that out loud, but for my husband, I'm sure, I know, because we've talked about it, but he can tell the difference. Like, I'm so much more present now. I'm so much more connected now. I really, really love our sex life, our intimacy, our connection. We are more chemically attracted to each other than ever. And those were choices that I made, for sure. It didn't happen by accident. So the magic morning practice is something that I started doing because I found my way back to yoga during that time. And I talk about the story earlier in an earlier episode, like in more detail, but the overarching picture is that I did go back to yoga. And I decided to take a 6-month yoga teacher training, and I ended up selling my business that I had at the time because I just really knew that I needed to take some time and focus on myself. And so for the first time in my life, I stopped making money. I was just taking time to be a mom and to be present for myself and my husband, but mostly first for myself, because I knew that if I didn't, I would grow to resent my husband even more. I would grow to resent being a mom and living where we are. It just wouldn't have gone down a good path. And so part of this yoga teacher training is really where we started talking about self-care as an idea, as a practice. And I started getting back into my body, which was amazing. And one of the things that this teacher mentor asked me to do and asked all of us to do was to start doing a morning yoga practice, including meditation. She didn't teach it the way I teach it now, but really it had the movement part solidly embedded in there, as well as the meditation. And so I did not want to do it at first because I was the mother of a young child. I really loved my sleep, but I decided I could do 5 minutes. And so I did. I started with 5 minutes, and I started noticing something interesting happening. After I did my five-minute yoga practice in the morning and my meditation, as fast as it was, I noticed that I was a little bit more patient with my son. I was a little bit more prone to laughing and smiling, which I had noticed started really going away. Like, I just wasn't very playful anymore. And so I started noticing that I was a little more playful and a little more with my son and laughing more. And that is what I wanted more. So over the next couple of weeks, I continued doing 5 minutes, and then I slowly increased it to 10 minutes. And then over time, as you know now, when I teach it, if you've watched my Magic Morning video, I say you can do it in as little as 3 to 5 minutes. Today, it's about an hour for myself that I give myself the time to really do the 3-step Magic Morning practice that I teach. And if you haven't experienced it, I do share the link in my outro of the podcast. But if you want to write this down somewhere right now or try to remember it, it's elanalipson.com/gift. And that will take you to the page on my website where you can click and get instant access to watch the Magic Morning practice the way I teach it. Now, all of the research that I've done over the years really indicate that successful people, however you define successful people, have some form of morning practice, whether it's waking up early and meditating or being in nature or going to the gym. It's something, because there's something magical about that morning hour. And I truly believe that the way you start your day is the way you show up in the world to those you love, to your work, to your clients. In fact, when I am speaking on stage or doing something bigger that requires more of my energy and presence, my Magic Morning practice expands. It just does, because I know that my energy is going to be lifted. I'm going to feel more intuitive, more divinely inspired, more present, so that even if I forget everything I'm about to say, which has happened to me before on stage, I can still be fully present and fully trust that I'm going to go exactly where I need to go and serve the audience in the best possible way. So again, the 3-step Magic Morning practice is my one skill that makes me an awesome mom, because it allows me to be present and playful and not in a rush with my son. I mean, how many mornings are you feeling like a rushed chicken cutting out with running around with your head cut off, instead of allowing yourself to be fully present for those magical morning hours with your kid or your kids or with your partner, right? It makes me an awesome wife because I take full responsibility for my energy, that's what we are. That's how we show up to each other. I don't show up to my husband complaining or, criticizing. I am present. I'm joyful in the morning. I start with a hug and a kiss, and I really want, even if we have a minute to connect before he leaves for work or whatever it is, we take the time because we understand that our presence is everything. And it's known in my house that, like, don't interrupt me in the morning because that's what I'm doing. I mean, I never yell at anyone, but I'm like, hey, I'll be down in a while. I still have my morning practice. And even if people are visiting, they know that Elena needs to do her time in the morning. Like, even if it's just a few minutes each, it still gets done, because if I care about the people in my life, then I know I need to show up in a way that aligns my energy. Now, if I skip it once in a while, which I do, I'm full enough of the magic of morning practice that I don't all of a sudden become some monster, I promise. So if you ever visit me or we're on retreat together, I'll still be happy before my morning practice, I promise. But I'll be so much more lit up and so much more luminous afterwards, and so will you be. So it makes me a better entrepreneur because it allows me to really connect in with my main mission here on this earth, which is to activate you to your own brilliance, which is to inspire you to really tap into your intuition, to speak your needs, to trust that your desires for pleasure and free time and play are just as important as profit and business building and community. Everything else starts with you. So the one skill that makes me an awesome mom, wife, and entrepreneur is the one that's going to make you an awesome whatever you want to be. And I promise you, it's so worth the investment. The return on investment of the Magic Morning Practice pays multiple dividends in your relationship and in your business. Now, when I do my morning practice, the way it affects my business is that I'm very clear on what my intention for the day is. My energy serves you in a way that is meaningful. That's what I owe to you. If I'm going to show up and speak and do and create, why am I going to do it half-assed? It's not worth it. You have so many options out there in the world, and the fact that you're choosing to be here with me is a blessing and a gift that I do not take for granted. So what I want to give you in return is this gift of the Magic Morning Practice. In fact, over the next month or so, I'm going to be putting together a very special 5-day Magic Morning Challenge where you and I are going to do it together. I'm going to actually meditate with you in the morning. We're going to do some journaling together, and we're going to move together. So even if it's going to take about 5 to 10 minutes, I promise not more than that, but you're going to start seeing the magic that can happen when you are actually doing the Magic Morning Practice, because we're going to do it together. So for now, I want you to get familiarized with the Magic Morning Practice. And all you have to do is head on over to elenalipson.com/gift, and you'll see exactly what to do. It's not complicated. And in under 10 minutes, you're going to get the entire set of instructions and ideas of how to do it your way. And then I know how hard it is to change a habit. Believe me, it's the work that I do with my clients. But I'm going to help you do this together in a 5-day challenge. And as a listener, you'll see when I do this. But when you sign up for the Magic Morning Practice and you get the free video, you will be notified as soon as the 5-day Magic Morning Challenge is going to begin. And I promise you, if you have some shift that you want to experience in your relationship, more pleasure, more time, more freedom, more money, you're going to be able to access that through a commitment to the Magic Morning Practice. And I promise, if you have just 3 minutes a day, it's still going to make a difference. So that is what I got for you today. Again, this is Elena Lipson, your self-care coach and mentor. I would love to know how you listened to this and what you took away from this. I'd love to hear your feedback. You can either leave a review, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can feel free to share this with your friends and sisters and family if you want to do the Magic Morning Practice together. I mean, that would be really, really cool. Accountability is awesome. And of course, if you watch the Magic Morning Practice, I want to know what this was for you. Like, how did you feel about it? Did you get inspired? Are you thinking you want to create your own? And how do you want to do that? You can also leave me a message on Instagram, Elena_Lipson. I love hearing from you. If you have any questions or ideas or anything, feedback, please find me there. Leave me a message, tag me, let me know what you're doing. And if you do your Magic Morning Practice, tag me, take a picture, post it on Instagram, tag me, let people know what you're doing so you can inspire them just like I inspire you, hopefully. All right, y'all, have an amazing, amazing day. I'm going to go feed myself some lunch, and I'm going to go have some conversations, and then I'm going to go play with my son because he's almost done with class. So have a phenomenal day. I'll see you on the next episode of the Divine Self-Care Meditations and Musings podcast, and go play because why not? Play is good. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening and learning about the new Divine Self-Care way of being in your life, business, and the bedroom based on the divine feminine metrics of success: pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. If you're ready to bust the myth of overwhelm and tap into an inspired start to each day, I've put together a free video series for you to help you start each day with energy, inspiration, and ignite that inner pilot light which attracts joy, magic, and synchronicity. You can access my 3-step magic morning practice to help you ignite your inner light and attract the abundance that you're craving. Head on over to elainalipson.com/gift. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would so love if you share it with a friend, a sister, a mother, a daughter, and please leave a review. That is how the magic starts to ripple out. Here's wishing you a day full of beauty, magic, and divine self-care. I'll see you next time at the Meditations and Musings